It's an important day for the railway as the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service is officially presented. Welcome to In the Loop. Well, hello and welcome folks. Now before we get into the big event, of course it's time for a quick fire look around the railway to see what's been happening since the last episode. Now, over the last weekend of February half term, we had Kilmerston down here at Alresford doing driver for a tenner. Now, from a footplate point of view, this was great fun. Lots of happy people and something we haven't tried before. So if you did enjoy it, then please do let us know. Who knows? We might just have to do something similar once again. While we haven't been running, the Permanent Way guys have been continuing their regular inspections, doing a weekly track walk of the whole line and also replacing sleepers, chairs, and catching up on any maintenance they can do while the trains aren't running. And of course, once the trains start kicking into full season again, those weekly inspections will continue throughout the year. So you can get a mix of beautiful, sunny, gorgeous weather and absolutely horrific. Hardy blokes these P-Way guys, but a valuable job they do nonetheless. You may not have seen much of our 45-ton steam train, and that's because it's here at Alton. It's been out of service for its 10-year overhaul, just like we have to do with our regular steam locomotives. Its boiler is currently here. This is a vertical cross water tube boiler, and essentially what that means in English, instead of like all our other engines, the hot gases are carried through the water space in tubes. In this case, it's the water that's carried through the tubes through the combustion chamber right above the fire. It's currently passed its hydraulic test. They're currently doing some fettling works on the mud hole doors, and the next stage will be it gets put back into the engine for its steam test, and hopefully after that it will be ready to use once again. Now on the MPD side of Ropley, 75079 is progressing well. On the inside they've continued painting, so it's progressed a lot further than when we last saw it. The mechanical lubricators above my head have been overhauled and refitted. So these are essentially ways of providing oil to bits of motion on the run. In here is a selection of pumps which are driven off a ratchet, which in turn is driven off the motion. This allows oil to be delivered down to moving parts while on the run. Looking at the axle boxes themselves, the axle box crowns are being made. Now these are essentially bronze outer casings. White metal then gets poured in and machined, and that's what fits on the axle. Now looking at the tender for 75079, well, as you can see, the tank here has been brought in the workshop, and the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to be lifted up and paint the underside. And the chassis, as we've seen, well, that's pretty much all ready to go. Looking at our famous little tank engine, the main cylinder block is being machined, which is explains the big hole at the front. We're also machining some of the other moving parts, so the bearings and motion, and they've started painting as well. So some of the inside has some primer, and the wheels are getting their trademark blue look once again. Last time we saw the 7F, the floor of the smoke box had been cut out while they replace a gasket on the main steam pipe. That's all been done, the annual exam has been passed and the engine is good to go, and they're currently replacing the floor, which unfortunately they did have to cut through. Now, as always, if you do want to keep track of everything happening around Ropley, there is no better way to do it than by following Ropley MPD, where the guys here post regular updates, and I'll chuck a link in the description below. Over here in the boiler shop, we're currently in Canadian Pacific's firebox again. Now all the stays are in, they're currently going through the process of hammering them over. This is where you heat it up with oxyacetylene, acetylene specifically, so you can really concentrate that heat. You then use a rivet gun and a snap to hammer it over. They'll then be tooled in later on. The reason you do this is because if we left the stays in an untreated state like this, the extreme heat from the firebox would just burn it away and ultimately cause that stay to fail. So after having the joy of reaming, tapping, and putting in those over 2,000 stays, Jamie now has the unenviable task of hammering them over. Now from one firebox to another, we're now in our little tank engines, so understandably it's a bit more cosy. Last time we saw it, the tubes were just being put in and ready to be expanded out. Now that's been done, and they had to go on to the next stage, which is called bell and beading. Now, remember what I said about Canadian Pacific stays and the effect the heat has on them, and which is why they need to be tooled over? Well, the same applies to boiler tubes. Bell and beading essentially is a two-part process. The first bit flares out the end of the tubes and the second part folds them over, so you get a nice steam and watertight seal. As a belt and braces extra level of protection, you can also put a bead of weld round each tube, which is what the guys have done here. Now the tubes at this end of the boiler in the smoke box, they don't get the same bell and bead treatment because it's not required. They're not subjected to the same amount of heat to that you find in the firebox. Now, on the line of heat, Ed has finished the smoke box door baffle, that's now been fitted and the door has now been mounted to the front of the smoke box. Now looking at the guys at the Uri Locomotive Society, when we last saw them they were working on the ash pan, which is right here. This essentially goes underneath the firebox, collects all of that spent ash to save it dropping onto the track. When we last saw them they were just starting it and they have finished it, so it's now going to be put away into storage and the next stage will be when it actually gets mounted to the boiler. Now as a little bonus, we've recently been seeing they've been doing work on the front bogie. Well, these are the wheels that actually go into them and you notice they've been painted in a very special colour indeed. This is holly green, the original livery that the locomotive was outshopped in 1920. Now, aside from following Ropley MVD, if you do want to keep track of the Uri Society and help support them, well, you can join them. Visit urilocal.co.uk and if you subscribe and become a member, you get this fantastic edition of Stovepipe where they keep you up to date with everything that's happening with 499 and 506. So, well worth a look at. Now the 18th of February saw our grand launch of a new revamped Watercress Bell service, some absolutely fantastic food, a really wonderful night. Of course, the ribbon cutting was done by our very own Alan Titchmarsh, patron of the railway. And if you guys would like a trip on the Watercress Bell, then don't forget to follow watercressline.co.uk for more information. And on the same night, as a bonus, it was the first train of our Real Ale train for the 2023 season. Lots of fantastic ales on board, a free pint voucher included with your ticket, and frankly, an absolutely brilliant night. So, if you guys would like a night out on the Real Ale train, then once again visit watercressline.co.uk for more information. The 4th of February 1973 marked the last day of trains of Watercress Line, with a 2 minutes past 8 departure being formed partly of our Hampshire unit. This would be the last Hampshire unit to run across the Watercress Line's metals. Well, until the line itself was saved. To commemorate the 50th anniversary of the line being closed and the last Hampshire units running, the team here brought the Hampshire unit back down to Alresford to mark the occasion, running it back into the platform at 8:21, the exact time that last Hampshire unit arrived. It was also a good opportunity to fundraise for the unit, and if you would like to keep track of everything happening to this beautiful unit, then the group you need to follow on Facebook is Thumper1125, and I'll chuck a link in the description below. And finally, on the 27th of February, the Lord Lieutenant Nigel Atkinson came down to Alresford Station, where we are today, to officially present the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, interestingly on behalf of the King. The ceremony was well attended by many of our volunteers, both past and present, and provided a true testament to the hard work and dedication of everyone since the early days before the line even reopened. Understandably, this was an important day for the railway and marked a moment in history and recognition of all those dedicated people who took the railway from being closed for not being profitable to where it is today. It's easy to think that history was made when we reopened the line. It was made again when we got to Alton, but really, history is constantly being made and everyone has their part to play. And I, like everyone else, are proud to be part of this wonderful railway. So on that note, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
I'm Nigel Atkinson, I'm His Majesty's Lord Lieutenant of Hampshire. Well, I know the Watercress Line well because I've attended a number of events here over the years, and the last one being back in 2020 when the Flying Scotsman came down the line and stopped off at Alton. I've watched the amazing work that volunteers have done over the years, and when I think back to 1974 and the fact that some of them bought some bed and then relayed 6.5 miles of railway track, as well as repairing 4 derelict stations, you can see the amount of hours that these volunteers have given in those 40 odd years. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, and it's because of that work and their commitment and their enthusiasm that they were awarded a Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. Now, It was awarded in Her late Majesty's reign, but of course today I've presented the award on behalf of His Majesty. So they are again a very unique organisation. The fact they've had an award given to them by Her Majesty but presented by His Majesty.
Hello, my name's Richard Lacey. I have the privilege of being president of the Watercress Line. Today we've had the Lord Lieutenant come to present us with the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to say a huge thank you to all of the volunteers, past and present, for the contribution that they have individually and collectively made to the running of this railway. The award today recognises the amazing contribution that has been made by so many people over so long a period, particularly as we approach our 50th anniversary. And when you think about where we've come from on a railway that originally had about 3 miles of track, and we're now 10.5 miles of track, the effort that was put in by the early volunteers to relay the line is extraordinary. But even now, the number of people that we have to deliver our services and to help us drive forward is amazing. And I wanted to take the opportunity to say a huge thank you to everybody, because all of you, all of the volunteers, have created the opportunity for us to win this award. It is a hugely significant award. It is the equivalent of an MBE presented to an individual. So it is a very prestigious award, and we heard from the Lord Lieutenant today how few of these are presented each year, and we are therefore doubly grateful that we have been selected to be a winner of the award. And I think it underpins the prestige with which we are regarded and the contribution that we make not only to our own organisation but also to the wider public. Whilst today has been about volunteers, we should all recognise that the majority of our paid staff also volunteer in some capacity or other. So I go back to the point, this is a team sport running this railway. We could not do it without either the paid staff or the volunteers, and everybody has a significant role to play. And again, thank you very much for the contributions you make.